Wow. Um, like like throw your tissues in the garbage right there, right? I mean, just that's such a great story of the gospel going forward in our neighborhoods. So today we continue our series on parenting, and I have my wife with me, my beautiful wife, and so excited that she's with me again. And so we're gonna start with some famous parent sayings, famous parent phrases, and I'm gonna see if you. I'm gonna give you some of the statement and see if you can finish the rest of it. This is going to hurt me as much as it's going to hurt you.
More than it hurts you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've never. Did you ever see your mom and dad cry when they whoop you or disciplined you?
Or get a bruise or anything.
No, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not, absolutely not. So that didn't make sense to me. All right. Here's another one: straighten up your face before it freezes like that. Okay. I know some people. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Did you ever have your
think
mother said that to you?
Yeah, and I think I use that still.
Okay, you still use that. Okay, all right, all right. So, how about this one? When I was your age, like walking up the hill both ways, no shoes, three toes broken.
You had to walk in the snow,
Yeah,
carry
absolutely.
a bucket of water up
Absolutely.
the hill to the cow.
Absolutely,
and,
never
yeah.
like these are kind of famous things, but these are also kind of fighting words as well. How about this? Stop crying before I give you something
Something to cry about.
Something to cry about. That's right. We use that, and it actually worked on me, but I still like what you just said to me and did to me. It was enough to make me cry. So I don't think you can make me cry any more than you're making me cry right now. So all right,
I'm guilty of saying, save your tears for the big things. Don't cry over things like that.
Okay, yeah, save your tears for the big things. All right, so these are kind of not only famous sayings, but these are kind of they could be used as fighting words as well. And there are even greater sayings than this that cut a little bit deeper. And there are some people who are listening to me right now that your mother or your father, they've said some things to you, and that's cut and wounded you deeply. And as we said last week, it doesn't have to be that way. And we know that there's a war going on between parents and children, children and parents, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm going to use kind of similar a phrase the big idea that I used last week, but I'm gonna take out children, and now I'm gonna insert parents. All right. So here's the statement, and so it's gonna be on the screen. Christian families can end the war. Christian families can end the war and have peace and harmony in their homes when parents fulfill their divine responsibilities found in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Now, last week we talked about the children fulfilling their divine responsibilities, but now parents have divine responsibilities that they are to carry out. And I'm going to give you three responsibilities that parents have. The first one is this. The first responsibility is don't provoke your children to anger. Don't provoke my children to anger. Here's the passage, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Ephesians chapter says, fathers. Now, we're talking about not just fathers, but we're also talking about parents, both mother and father. Do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So the first responsibility for a parent, for a father or mother, or if you're a single parent, is not to provoke your children to anger. So when we talk about provoking children to anger, it is the idea is a repeated ongoing pattern of treatment and behavior that gradually builds up a deep-seated anger and resentment toward someone. So again, provoking our children to anger, it suggests a repeated, not a one-time thing, but a repeated ongoing pattern of treatment and behavior that gradually builds up to deep-seated anger and resentment. The word actually means to exasperate or to irritate. Now, I know some of your kids may have used that word, but you irritate me. Now, this is the idea behind this word. Now, we're going to get into some specifics in a few minutes, but this is significant because the father had supreme authority in the Greco-Roman world. He had supreme authority. And one of the ways in which that was shown, this is kind of weird, not weird, but kind of, it kind of hurts and wounds a parent. But I want you to listen to this. The history behind this is that a father had so much authority that when a child was born, they would bring the child before the father. If the father picked up the child, then that meant that the child was accepted into the home. If the father did not pick up the child, that was a sign of rejecting the child, and the child could be sold or actually left in the elements and exposed to weather, and the child would die. Now, no loving father would treat their child that way, but again, this was legal during this time, and some Greek fathers actually did that. And so Paul says, now that you follow Jesus, there's a different way that you ought to respond to your kids. You ought to use your authority to actually bless your kids, to encourage your kids, not to discourage them and embitter them. Now, here's another passage that Paul talks about. This is Colossians chapter 3, verse 21, and this is it kind of gives a little bit more color and flavor to the Ephesians passage. It says, fathers, do not provoke. That's a different word than the Ephesians passage. This word means do not embitter your children. Do not discourage your children, lest they become discouraged. So in other words, Paul's saying there's a way we can treat our children in such a way that it leads to bitterness and resentment and hatred and discouragement. So as a parent, we have this amazing responsibility to raise up adults, well-rounded adults, not to wound them and abuse them, but to shape and mold their hearts. So when they leave the house, they are leaving the house in such a way where they are honoring God and honoring the name that their parents have given them. And so there's a whole list of ways in which we can provoke our children to anger, but Tanya and I are going to give you a few that we think are big ones and or ones that we've seen, and then we'll move forward. But I did because Tanya really didn't like this exercise. She didn't like this exercise at all. So I asked our kids, how have we provoked you to anger? Now, listen, if you're not ready for the answer, don't ask that question. So let me ask a question. So why did you get defensive, a little defensive when I said, like I'm going to ask them this question, and you were almost like, I don't even want to know the answer. So tell me, why did you get a little defensive?
Because I'm already aware of my inadequacies. I need them to point them out too. So, yeah, it's daunting. I have faults, and it's like, oh, look at that hole in your head. I know I have that. I mean, why you got to point it out? So, yeah.
So here are we're not gonna give like our daughter gave us a whole list of things, and so it's like we need counseling now. We need counseling
Yes.
because of our kids. So here's one of our kids. This is and how we've angered and embittered him. It says not having genuine conversations, and then he put in parentheses, this is more on Dad's part. So I guess Tanya is perfect on this one, and I'm not. So there's this desire to be known and simply to talk. But there are times in which it seems like all of the conversations have to have an agenda or a prompt. And it's okay to talk just because. And so I received that. I absolutely received that. All right. So here's another one. It says, I would say, and this is about trust. This is about trust. I would say something that made me feel bitter was when the whole situation, when you all left to go on the cruise and we had miscommunication, and I didn't stay at the house with Michaela. It just didn't feel like family. And so I'm like, wow, okay, I get that. That's okay. And then here is another. I don't get angry or bitter very often, but probably like he goes to school. It should be probably. He just put probably. All right. So probably the only times I've ever felt like this is when I thought you guys didn't believe I could do something that I was working to do. So that's the sense of believing in your child. And then here's another. When there's a double standard. And then she gives, well, not she, she gives an example. I was trying to keep our kids anonymous on this, but she gives an example of, how the boys, when they were her age, when Michaela's age, they could go out and they didn't stay out all night, but she said they stayed out all night, but they didn't stay out all night. And we knew what they were doing, but she said we didn't know what they were doing. And she said, no, I can't stay out past 12 because it's too late. And though you guys know exactly where I am and who I'm with, I can't stay out. And then she says, okay, I have two anger ones because I couldn't decide which one to give. And it says, when my problems don't seem to get taken seriously and jokes are made when I'm trying to be serious and actually share my thoughts, it hurts more for me because I don't like sharing my thoughts so much. And then when jokes are given in return, instead of having a serious response, it makes me not want to share. So again, these are some that are from our kids. Again, we're not perfect parents at all, and so we have done that to our children. So here are a few more. We're not going to give you this is a long list. We're not going to give you all of them. But how about what's another one?
When there is inconsistency.
Okay, so when there's inconsistency in parental behavior. Mm-hmm. All right. So here's one: lying to your children. Again, lying to your children, and then your children are not looking at you as people of integrity. So lying to your children can provoke your children to anger. What's another one?
Failure to spend time, and I just want to put a pin there. Many parents think that they have to book a vacation to Disney or something like that, and really spend time. We used to have a thing called Day with Dad, and it was the day of their birth. So they're born on the 28th. So every 28th of the month, they would have their Day with Dad. And so it was really an hour, and they could choose what they wanted to do. I remember you going to the library and reading books with Michaela. That's what she wanted to do. These are things. It's an hour, but they talk about these things. They feel heard. They feel important. They feel special, which they are. And so failure to spend time with them, it doesn't have to be costly. It just has to be intentional.
So that could provoke your children to anger. Again, I've already mentioned double standards, and again, for one kid versus another kid, and again, we're not. You got to treat your kids differently, but kids can recognize when there's a double standard, and that also provokes them to anger. What's another one?
A failing to love your spouse. When you elevate the children over the spouse, they can see that, and they will use it. So
yeah, they will definitely use it. There again, we have. So I'm going to just kind of do rapid fire the list. a failure to encourage your children, lack of affection. We still get hugs from our kids before they go to bed. That's something that we started doing, and they still hug us before they go to bed. Verbal abuse, verbal or physical abuse. Playing favorites, that's a big one. Favorites for one kid versus another. Being overly critical is another. And then let's just do one more, just
All
from
right.
your vantage point.
Expressive of discipline or punishment. So something that's excessive, that goes over the top. So I mean, I don't think we punish enough. But anyway,
I think we
I
did.
make a joke of everything, as you can tell.
I think we did. I think we did a pretty good job. But but again, I think you actually. You did both. We did timeouts. We had a wooden spoon. We wanted to try to separate. We never used our hand or anything like that. But there was the cleaner's hanger. We did that sometimes, just a kind of little pop, just to let them know, and to remind them. But if it's excessive, if it goes overboard into the realm of abuse, then it can definitely anger and embitter your children. So there's a long list of others that we could talk about, but we need to move on. It seems that Satan befriends the parents in order to get to the children. Let me say that again. It seems that Satan befriends the parents in order to get to the children. And so certain things that we do to embitter the children, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the children to actually say, I want God, if the parents are embittering and angering their children or provoking their children to anger. One of the things that I tell parents a lot is that some parents come and say, well, my kid is so angry. And we look at this angry generation as if we had nothing to do with it. We look at this angry generation as if we have not had, this is something that if we look at an angry generation, I think we have to begin to look at what's our role in helping our children to have this bitterness, this resentment, this anger that kind of spills over in their words and in their actions. So the first responsibility is to not provoke our children to anger. So the first one is more of a negative. The second one is more of a positive. That is, nurture my children. Nurture my children. And so the word or the phrase, bring them up, that's the verb, bring them up. And that phrase, it actually means to nourish and to care for and to love. This word is used again in Ephesians chapter 5, where a husband is to nourish his wife, to love his wife, to care for his wife. And the same way a husband cares for and loves his wife, that's the idea is that a father and a mother ought to care for and nourish their children. Yes, providing shelter, providing food, emotionally caring for them emotionally, caring for them spiritually. And Jesus is our example. Jesus is our example. So Luke chapter 2, verse 52, Luke chapter 2, verse 52, we see Jesus grew in 4 different areas. It says Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And so in wisdom, we're to nourish our children intellectually. They should be reading books, not playing video games all the time, not watching television all the time. And again, I know that's like so well, I don't know what to give them to read. We have resources to help kids know what to read and to fill their minds with, so that we are nourishing them intellectually. Our kids, Tanya was really, as an educator, Tanya was really good about introducing reading at a younger age and helping our kids to love reading. And even to this day, Michaela absolutely loves reading. She has a book with her almost all the time. And so thank you for introducing and I mean seriously that introducing at a very early age our kids their love for reading. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right. So Jesus grew in wisdom and physically. So there's this sense where we help our kids to grow physically. Now, some of our kids are going to be the height that they are. Like my mother was the height that she was, and I'm not growing anymore. But we can physically help them, whether it's eating proper food, getting them outside to play, and those are things that help them to grow physically. And then in stature, in favor with God spiritually, placing things before them that help them to grow spiritually. This is one of the reasons I love our spiritual parenting classes, because it actually helps our parents and gives them resources to help to know, what should I have my kids to read spiritually? Should they read the Proverbs, or what? Are there things that they can listen to so they can get the word in their hearts and in their minds? And so helping our kids to grow spiritually, that's another way we nurture them. And then to help them to grow socially, that's another way we help our kids to grow. That is learning how to shake hands and looking people in the eye and saying thank you and please, and knowing how to interact in a social environment. This is where they learn it. They learn it in home. When they get ready when they get old enough to work, how to show up at an interview and how to dress for an interview. Those are really, really significant things. And so we are teaching our kids, giving them a well-rounded education, and not just Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. No, we're saying this is how you can apply Jesus to every aspect of your life. And so Jesus is, in fact, our example. He grew in 4 different areas, and I think we can help our kids to grow in those areas as well. And then here's the third responsibility that we have, is to train and warn. These should be kind of combined, to train and warn my children, So parents, we play a very, very vital role in determining very early what kind of impact we're going to have on our child. And one of the ways we do that is through correction and instruction. So I'm going to give you several passages from Proverbs talking about the importance of discipline and training. So when I use the word discipline, I'm not just using, I want you to hear, we're not just talking about punitive, even though there's space for that. We're training and discipline. Behind discipline is always training for correcting behavior. It's inspiring our kids to learn. It's inspiring our kids to do better than they do. And so discipline and training are so significant. So here's some passages from Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24. I'm going to give you to these very quickly. Whoever spares the rod hates his son. Listen to that. But he who loves him is diligent to discipline or train him or her. Now, again, using a physical discipline sparingly, but in this case, we're talking about shaping their hearts, training them to actually do what's right. Now, discipline is needed because sometimes our kids, they snatch the authority away from parents. Sometimes they mock the parents, they ridicule the parents, they cuss the parents out. And I just saw a video where a son was all up in his father's face and just it was horrendous. I could not take it. The kinds of words that he was using toward his father, it was absolutely horrendous. But again, I wonder if the father did not discipline and train early. Here's another one. Proverbs 19:18. Proverbs 19:18. Discipline your son, for there is hope. Do not set your heart on putting him to death. So discipline your son, for there is hope. So in other words, if you and I discipline our children, train them, there's hope for them in the future. All right, here's another one. Proverbs 22:15. Proverbs 22:15. This is what it says. Proverbs 22:15, there it is. Folly is bound up. I love this passage. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Like if you, like our kids, check this out. This is our kids all of our kids, and our kids were no different. They think they know more than we do. And that is foolishness. All right, that is total foolishness. There are some things that our kids know a little bit more about us, but in terms of life in general, that is plain foolishness. You don't know necessarily how to pay bills and how to do all of these things that we've lived life in. And again, this is not arrogance, but it's not that I don't trust my children, is that sometimes I don't trust their inexperience. And because we don't trust their inexperience, we have to train them. We have to correct them. We have to discipline them so that they understand a little bit more. What do you think of that verse?
Yeah, I used to use this on the kids. I said, foolishness is bound up in your heart, and I'm going to beat it out of you.
Ooh. All right.
Obviously, I didn't beat well, but.
Don't call the police on us. Don't call the police on us. All right. Proverbs 29:15. Proverbs 29:15. And it says, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. Did you hear that? A rod and reproof. Now, this is, again, correction and training. It gives wisdom. But if you just leave a child to himself or herself, you're going to see that child not know what to do. And so mothers and fathers, we are Sherpas. We are Sherpas leading our children up the mountain, this rugged mountain called life, and they are our legacy. Our legacy is not in the what, our legacy is in the who we leave behind, not what we leave behind. Legacy is not in buildings and money. Legacy is in well-formed children who we release into the world, who say, Jesus, we're making sure that Jesus is over all of our lives. And so the way we spend money, the way we cut our grass, the way we clean our room, the way we do our work in school, we are doing it as unto Jesus, and not because because we think our parents are going to hurt us or something along those lines. We are leaving behind a legacy, and we want to leave behind a legacy that honors God. Tanya says all the time to me that we don't have to have much, but these kids are our legacy that we leave behind. And she said, I just want you to know Jesus and live for him. That's like I tell them about how to invest money and all that kind of stuff, but Tanya's like, okay, Jesus, which is great, and I love. And but that's the legacy we're leaving behind. So, you have anything to add to that?
No, that
okay, all right.
Sums it up.
All right.
Yeah.
So how then can we How can we then have peace? Mothers and fathers, what are some things you can do to bring peace? So here are a few things that I think are important. Here are a few things that are important. And I call this the peace plan. I gave you a little bit, I gave you peace last week, and I'm going to give you this is for the parents. So the first one is pray and play. Pray and play. Pray for your children so they can hear you pray for them. And then pray publicly, pray privately, so your kids can catch you praying. Now, you're not doing this. Now, again, you're not doing this to do your good deeds before anybody, but just in your private time, your kids ought to know that mom and dad have a special place that they meet with God. This is their tent of meeting. Like Joshua saw Moses. Moses went into the tent of meeting and Joshua followed him. And our kids should know that we're praying for them, but also that we have personal time alone with God. Play, there is this sense that we don't take ourselves too seriously. Our kids should see us laughing and smiling a lot. There's research out there. So mothers, I know mothers, you tell your dad, you tell your husbands, don't play so rough with the boys. Don't play so rough with the kids. There is research that actually says that roughhousing with boys, particularly boys, Tanya got on me all the time. Like, why you play with the kids so rough? Now now I have research to back this up, is that it actually helps the boys psychologically, and it actually helps them to know boundaries and to know closeness of a father when fathers roughhouse with their children. So this is research by McDonald and Park. Fathers play a key role in the optimum development of psychological and emotional traits like empathy, emotional control, and the ability to navigate complex social relationships. So did you know, Juan Salazar, my buddy, my boy, I know you wrestle with your boys. We now have research to back it up, bruh, that listen, you are developing your boys. Ben Diaz, I know you wrestle with your boys. We have research now to back up. Listen, roughhouse with them don't hurt them. Don't kill them. Just let them know you're close to them and that you care about them. It matters. It matters. Mothers create a nurturing environment in infancy, and this is one way fathers get to develop their kids, even through roughhousing. Now, there's more, but that's one way. All right, here's the E. Encourage and empower. Encourage and empower. Parents, observe your kids, and call out the gold in them. So children are walking around feeling unwanted, and do I have enough? Do I have what it takes? Call out the gold in your kids. Call out the treasure in your children. Know their personality and catch them doing something really, really good, and then call it out in them.
Yeah,
Talk to us.
that's okay. Okay. Yeah, you try to take every opportunity to encourage, because they're going to run into people that are not encouraging, or other kids that are you're short, you're whatever their imperfections are. So I try to take as many opportunities as I can to encourage in whatever I see.
And Tanya, again, growing up, because she stayed at home, she had an opportunity to see, and then we would share those things. This is what I saw in Marvin. This is what I saw in Michaela. This is what I saw in Micah. And we got an opportunity to discuss that, talk about that. And so next time I saw it, I was able to call it out because it was there. And Tanya kind of helped me encourage and empower, give them duties and responsibilities to help them. Teach them how to balance a checkbook. Teach them how to mow the grass. Teach them how to wash the dishes. Teach them how to tie a necktie. Those things are significant. There's so many more ways we can empower our children. Here's the A. Apologize and forgive. Apologize and forgive. If you have hurt and wounded your children in some way, if you provoke them to anger, then this is an opportunity for you to apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't fully understand what I was doing at the time. So would you please forgive me? Would you please forgive me for not seeing you? Would you please forgive me for not encouraging you? And so there's this sense of apologizing and forgiving. For those of you who are adult parents or your adult children are estranged from you, don't give up. Don't give up. This is an opportunity, whether they respond or not, is write them a note, send them, call them up, and just say, hey, I've been searching my soul, and I have found some ways in which I think I may have not done as good of a job as a parent. Would you please forgive me? And even if kids have done some things, forgive them immediately. I think those are ways in which we help. Here's another one, coach and mentor. Coach, and I'm going to just give this to you quickly. Coaching is drawing out, and mentoring is putting in. Coaching is drawing out, and so one of the ways we draw out, we ask questions. We ask really, really good questions. And then mentoring is putting in. And what do we put in? We put in what we know about God. Share our story about how God has changed and shaped and is shaping our lives. So coaching is drawing out, mentoring is putting in, and then finally enter and engage. Enter their world and engage in their world. Enter their world and engage in their world. Their world is important to them, and it helps to know who they are and know what they are about. Your kids, they may leave you and say, "No, Mom, don't come here." But guess what? They will tell their friends that my mom cares about me. My dad cares about me. You know what my mother wanted to do? My mother wanted to know who my friends were. Wanted to go to the party with me. Tanya does this all the time. She said, "Listen, when they were when early on, like, can I come to the party with you?" Didn't you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even now.
Even now. All right. So we're going to get to some questions. We're going to get to a few questions. All right. Here's. So what if you started off badly in these areas of nurturing? How do you get on track?
Well, first, obviously, the first answer is always to pray and ask God for guidance. And then I would bring the child into it, the son or the daughter. It's like, hey, what kinds of things can we do together? What kinds of things do you like to do that I could do with you? That I'm notorious for that. So I'm like, oh, I like to go get mani-pedis. You want to go get a mani-pedi? What do you want to do? And so I try to ask them and let them come up with something.
Yeah, and I think that last point of forgive, or next to the last point, is apologize and forgive.
Yes.
Apologize and forgive, and say, hey, I may not be able to get the years back, but I do want to make sure that from this day forward, we are moving. Our relationship is going to look a little different because you're older now. But man, I would love to at least begin again, and sometimes it may not be so. One of the things that may happen is you may want to try to make up in one sitting for all the other years, and that you may not have done well. And don't do that. Take your time. Just go slow and let the child even set the pace in moving forward. And then, what are some practical ways to help get on the same page with your kids in terms of agreeing on what is a healthy amount of screen time to engage each day?
I'm laughing because I don't think you will get to a happy medium. You as a parent will have to make a choice. And I don't always think that the kids are going to be happy with my choices, but God has still called me to parent. And so if I say, I think 2 hours is enough, and they say, oh, I think 6, and then we come up with 3, then next week they're like, well, Mom, I've been good. I think I should go to 4. No, we said 3, so that's it. And so there may be choices that you make that the kids will not be happy with. And so what? And so you're not happy. So.
All right, and then here's the last one, and then we're going to bring Karen back on. So we live in such a dark, evil world. How do we protect our kids, but also prepare them for living in our culture? Now, I'm going to. This is May. I don't know if this is a hot take or this is a very unpopular opinion. The truth is, you can't protect your child. You just can't do it. You can do the best you can in preparing them to think critically, to choose their friends carefully, to make it easier for them to know God. But the reality is, the moment our kids leave our home, we cannot protect them. And that's where we say, God, you can do more with our kids than we ever can. So we leave them in your hands. We give them what they need, and we release them. We release them, and we trust that as they make mistakes, they will learn from those mistakes. And we can warn them, as we talked about in Proverbs. We can warn them, but we cannot fully protect them. And I know that may be unnerving to some, but that's our reality. And but we can prepare them and release them into the world. So, hey, listen, Tanya, thank you for being with us. Carolyn, I'm going to bring you back on. I know we're just a tad bit over time, but thank you so much for Trinity Church family. Thank you for investing in your kids, loving your kids, and children. Thank you for honoring and obeying your parents. Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you, Marvin and Tanya. That was awesome. And such good truths. I've written down the peace plan, and it's good for us to also notice as you were talking. I realized, there's a temptation, or we might think that parenting is those correction moments, but it's so much more than that. And really, the majority of our parenting is in that coaching, that empowering, the encouraging, the praying, and the playing. And friends, we can do that. God's with us. He is right by our side. He is guiding us, and you can parent well because you have a great big God who's with you moment by moment. Have an awesome week. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.